capital, our studios. My name's Soro David, viewers of Ssbc, looking at this special interview, exclusive, with right here in the studio, having the Undersecretary in the Ministry of Environment to tell us more, being an expert who is shortly will be with us telling us more to do on the environmental effect on looking at also human health and looking at the current actually heat that are actually coming as a natural disaster to the people of South Sudan, and the environmental looking at actually the change. Is it the change of the weather, or it is the change of a climatical change? To mention but a few, but I think we will be able to hear from him, who is none other than Joseph Africana Bertula, who is with us, will be able to tell us more on why the environment has changed and looking at actually being a disaster. I think he will be able to tell us more to do on that. Right, Honorable, you are the quite and the rightful person to be with us right here in the studio, being a technocrat in the Ministry of Environment and looking at this disaster today happening in South Sudan. And I think it may be also globally, you never know. You are the expert who will be able to tell us, because you know the role of your ministry as far as this situation is concerned and looking at your ministry. What could be your role as far as the ministry is concerned on environment and on the impact of environmental coalition today? Your take.
Thank you, Soro. First of all, I would like to thank Ssbc and all the viewers. It's a very important topic. Currently, we are experiencing a heat wave. Mm-hmm. And this heat wave is a result of global warming, mm-hmm, and broadly the impacts of climate change. What I would like to tell the viewers, global warming is the result of the emissions of greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide, mm-hmm, methane, mm-hmm, and nitrous oxide. When we receive rays, ultraviolet rays from the sun to the atmosphere, the earth reflects the rays back to the atmosphere. But because of these gases that trap heat that have been produced mostly by the developed countries. Mm-hmm. So major emitters are China, US, Brazil, and most of the European countries. So these greenhouse gases have trapped heat. And now instead of the ultraviolet rays finding their way back to the atmosphere, they are now being reflected back to the earth and now raising temperatures.
Mr. Joseph, looking at South Sudan, it's globally fine. This is an impact that, as you did mention, it is a global change that has come as it's an impact. Generally, looking into South Sudan in particular, South Sudan is a country that not in the spectrum of this. First and foremost, looking at the issues of industrialization, air pollution, and looking at also there are many factors that could impact this. In South Sudan has never reached this far of industrialization. It could be one of the impact that could impact this into the country today. And also look at the environment. Deforestation could be one, but then to mention but a few. Why do you think it's in existence today?
No, you know, it has to, I have to make it clear. South Sudan has negligible emissions, as you say. But the global warming is something that impacts not only the countries that are emitting, but countries like ours, least developed countries. That's why now we are feeling this heat wave. Temperatures are increasing. With the Paris Agreement, we want to make sure that those countries cut their emissions by 40% by 2030. That one will ensure that the temperature rise will not exceed 2 degrees. But at the moment, it's not happening. So in our situation and where we are located, okay, close to the equator, we still have warm temperatures, but those temperatures used to be manageable between 25, 26, 27. But because of global warming, they have now surpassed that normal temperature. The human temperature is 37 degrees. That's what every human will operate well. But at the moment, with this heat wave, the temperatures are above 39 to 42, which is way out of the normal temperature of human beings. That it impacts our health. So that's why if we as a country had enough energy, we would have gotten air conditioning.
Now the question here comes, you are the technical person, look at your position as a technocrat from the Minister of Environment, and holding that position, it's very critical, and it's actually what could actually be enlightened to the public. When you look at South Sudan itself as a country of its own, based in the latitude of in the equator, the humidity has risen up. Has it been in that for the last 10 years? Because according to the research that we actually we've done, the facts finding that in almost every after 10 years there must be a climatical change. But in the case of South Sudan today, what could be that critical condition that have really impact that to be in existence? Because now when you look at what is happening today?
Today, climate change is real. We have cycles, okay? In the past, in the 60s, we have at least 10 years, then you'll get flooding. But now, because of climate change, the cycle has shortened. You can have flooding every year. So climate change has impacted that. That's why we are having this. So we as a country have not contributed to this phenomenon. Even though we know our forests are being depleted, we know that we have imported a lot of two-stroke engines that will also impact our microclimate. We are looking for bigger mega projects like mitigation. So South Sudan is in a good position to transition to clean energy. When we have clean energy from hydro, solar, wind, geothermal, I think we'll be able now to reduce our impacts on our forest. That maintains our microclimate. Because at the moment, we don't have energy. We are using a lot of our forest. We are cutting our forest, and we know that forests are there for our microclimate, therefore evapotranspiration for getting us rain. But most of our forests, we have a very big rate because everybody now is depending on charcoal. So as a country, we have to do two things to mitigate.
Honorable, now you are talking of actually forestry would be one of the impacts. Looking at this deforestation, you being actually a technical person in that position, what could be the role of the Minister of Environment looking at the issue of deforestation? This is one, and looking at also at the same time, when we look at the population, it's one of the impact.
Yeah.
Environmentally.
Yeah.
What could you say about that? And in congestion of the population within the country, as we look at Juba in particular?
That's the thing. You know, it comes to energy. We all need energy to cook our foods, to whatever, you know. So, but that energy that we are using biofuels, which is biomass, which is from the forest. But we also know that trees kind of like moderate our climate. So as the ministry, we are advocating for a transitioning from charcoal as or fuel wood as a source of energy to renewable sources of energy, such as, what I say, hydroelectricity, solar. But one thing that we can do in a big population like Juba, we can introduce natural gas or LPG. So if we have 2 million cylinders for 2 million households in Juba, and they use gas that is subsidized by government, then the need for charcoal and fuel wood and the pressures to the forest will be reduced. So it is a matter of us putting our climate strategies in place. Then we'll try to find some solutions to what we are having now.
Mr. Joseph, is that a short-term plan or a long-term plan? Because now we are in a critical condition. The situation is worsening, whereby some activities in the country are not being conducted, looking at one of the most important, the primary factor, looking at students being departed out of schools. This question could not have been answered by you, but due to the environmental factors that has also affected environmentally, I think this question goes to you indirect. What could be some of this?
You know, getting a hydroelectric power generation takes at least 5 to 10 years. But we have solutions.
It's a long-term plan.
It's a long-term plan. Schools, for example, we can introduce solar power in most of our schools and improve the ventilation. Say like when you go to Dubai, temperatures are above 40 degrees, some going up to 50. But since they have energy, they can still have a microclimate within their houses. Everybody can afford an air conditioning. Offices can have air conditioning. Schools can have air conditioning. So what do we need to do now?
Mr. Joseph,
we have to
intervene. Mr. Joseph, looking at all the high institutions of governmental institutions of actually the ministries, and looking at, in many institutions, and looking at non-governmental organizations in most cases, now in Juba they are using the air condition, which is one of the effective tool that impact into also human health. And you are inclusive into that. And looking at the environment today, it's too hot, where people have resorted into even death.
Yeah. As I'm telling you, there are natural solutions, planting of more trees. But again, we can plant trees, and the next day we cut them for energy, you know? So the most important thing is we prioritize the generation of 3,000 megawatts of power. That will resolve our problems with energy and saving our ecosystem, okay? This is what I'm coming from. And these are solutions that we have, okay? So at the moment, everybody can plant trees in their compounds and maintain them. But in the long run, if we don't have clean, sustainable, cheap source of energy, we'll still destroy our forest. This is our problem. So, but to make sure that we reduce the impact to our forest, we need to start looking into how are we going to generate more clean energy. That's the mitigation. At the same time, do some regeneration and planting trees in areas that has been destroyed. So this is one thing. But coming to agriculture too, okay? Because with climate change, the rain patterns have shifted, and you cannot, in those years, by now people could have been starting planting, but now rains have moved.
That is due to the climatical change, as you did mention.
So we need to go also to smart agriculture.
Mr. Joseph, how does water contamination impact into this heat? Because it's one of the factors.
Water contamination.
Heat that have actually has become one of the factors that has actually affected the population.
You see, scarcity, with the heat, you are losing a lot of water. Okay, there is a lot of water that's being evaporated, and it is increasing the humidity. That simply means our soils are becoming dry. At the same time, we'll produce a lot of dust. And with this dust, of late, everybody in Juba has been coughing. In a dry season, everybody's coughing, with even having flu in a dry season. That is because of the dust and the dryness, okay? Because we're drying stuff. So every environmental issue has an impact on our human health. So too much heat simply means we are going to have dry soils, and all the topsoil, which is the organic soil that will be used for growing plants, will be blown away. That simply means it also gets in the dryness, and what follows with dryness is the encroachment of the desert.
I think some of these questions couldn't go by you, but environmentally it has also affected. Looking at your ministry, you know, there are diseases that have impact into looking at diseases like asthma, looking at diseases like, this is caused by these environmental factors that have actually inherited in with, that affects actually the kidney, and it's really one of the tangible environmental factor that has affected policies in place in such an arena, today being a disaster in the country, South Sudan.
You know, as a ministry, we do forecasting of weather. We are developing an early warning system. But as a cross-cutting ministry, we have the Ministry of Health, we have the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock, all those environment line ministries. We have policies that kind of like addresses most of their issues. So for example, with this heat wave, what the ministry did when we got a forecast that we'll be having at least 2 weeks of hot temperature, we wrote a memo to the Council of Ministers advising that the heat wave is going to hit us for the next 2 weeks, and the vulnerable in South Sudan don't have adequate ventilation. There are schools without ceilings, corrugated iron as walls. Then imagine if you have corrugated iron and you have kids, and the amount of temperature or heat that gets into a class, because with the corrugated iron in a closed place, temperatures in those classes will go up by 50.
Sure.
So we advise that we close the schools, okay, for the next 2 weeks, because by March, mid-March, we might be expecting cooler temperatures and the dawn of the rainy season. But also, we have advised the Ministry of Education not to start opening schools in January or February. We have to move it. It has to be climate sensitive. Let us open our schools by the end of March. By then, the rainy season will start there and the temperatures will be cooler. If, and only if we have energy and we have schools that are heat-proof classes, then normally. But if our schools are not in conformity with addressing issues of heat waves and hot temperature, I think we need now to make a decision. The Council of Ministers need to make a decision of making sure that schools are open by the first
Honorable Joseph, you are talking of if. This is a natural phenomena that may or may not, looking at the near future, that would happen or may not happen. It is actually something that is unpredictable. What if it happens or not?
What we know is our rainy season have shifted to April. And if we start from April, the temperatures there will be manageable. What I said if is not we are going to change everything, but we need now to heat-proof our environments in school. Okay, that's if we are now going to operate, even operate. But I know most, even government institutions, the tariffs of the electricity that we have are very high. Sometimes in our offices, we don't have power. Okay? So now the issue of energy transition is very important, because with heat, the antidote to heat is producing coolness. Okay? But again, that's where the priorities have to be set.
Honorable, those could be one of the challenges that you are looking at actually to forego. What could be some of the mechanism as far as the ministry is concerned and looking at actually the environmental factor that affects actually human health as it's concerned, because it is right from your vicinity that actually this could be taken as a drastic measures to prevent looking at actually what is happening now?
You know, climate change is a reality. And several least developed countries, not only us, when you go to the small island developing states, the seas, when you go to the Caribbeans, when you go, all those countries are being impacted. That's why we have a global platform that, because all of us with those countries have not contributed to this phenomenon. That's why we are looking to see to it that developed country parties are to come to our aid. And as a ministry, I would like to inform you that next month, we as government have invited the executive director of the Green Climate Fund. She will be visiting South Sudan for 5 days. And now she will be experiencing what we are experiencing. That fund has been created in order to avail funds to countries like ours that have not contributed to this global phenomenon. Funds for mitigation and funds for adaptation. We have a country
Honorable
program.
Joseph, you would want to tell the public and the people that this has never been happening and the fund has not been funded for such a phenomenon.
Yeah, the Green Climate Fund has been created to serve the Paris Agreement. And we, as South Sudan, are party to the Paris Agreement. And in that agreement, least developed countries and developing countries with negligible emissions have come up to make sure that the developed countries put to that fund money and will use that money for generating energy, clean energy, and also supporting our natural resources management like agriculture, livestock, water management, and you mentioned it. So we are happy as a ministry, because with our economic situation, some of these issues won't be addressed. But we have now a country program, and for the first time, the executive director of the Green Climate Fund is coming to a country like ours, such that we are going to discuss and how we're going to mitigate these issues of climate change. The money that will come from the fund will not be enough, but it will be augmented by budgets from our government. Likewise, we would like also to invite investors to come in and invest in the area of energy and invest in the area of agriculture. All those areas need investment such that we turn the tide to this impact.
Now, looking at also one of the impacts on this situation today, on this wave, that on board, which it has also affected. Looking at actually at the social gathering and the religion, actually have also brought that as an impact. Gathering in churches, looking at actually in this, you have already dispersed schools to go and do findings where people should relax, and because of this heat. Religion is one of the impacts that have also occurred, social gatherings, and sometimes you look at also the churches, mosques, because on the point of view, that one also impact. What do you have to say on that, on impact on the people of South Sudan? I think it happens globally.
You know, with a heat wave, there is dehydration. As human beings, when the temperature is hot, we lose a lot of water. We get dehydrated. Okay. So when you expose yourself into too much heat, strenuous activities in a heat wave, that simply means you'll start losing water from your body. You will be dehydrated. And the dehydrated may result into fainting, and people with chronic diseases, high blood pressure, diabetes, those are people who are at risk. But the most important thing is you reduce your activities during hot temperatures. You drink a lot of water. You drink a lot of water. Make sure that you hydrate. Some infants, make sure that you check on them. Give them a lot of fluids too, because they cannot tell you that we need water. So it's the responsibility of everybody to make sure that the body is hydrated and avoid direct contact with the sun, which is hot. Stay under trees. Make sure that for churches, early in the morning, the temperature is still conducive. So if you can start your prayers from, say, 8 up to noon, that's okay. Okay. But always start avoiding gathering when temperatures are above 37, because it is more than your body temperature. So the Ministry of Health has also come up with some advisories, advisories that people have to follow. The most important thing, the advisory can be there, but it's an individual responsibility to take care of their own health.
The Ministry of Environment is not there to work alone as a service deliverer to the people of South Sudan. South Sudan has got 10 states and administrative areas looking at this environmental factor. Who are some of these stakeholders that you're working hand in hand to make sure dissemination of information to the people, to the public, though it's an impact that affects human nature in particular, people have it in index?
One big disseminator is you. The Ssbc, the radios that we have, iRadio, Miraya, they all have been disseminating the information about this heat wave. The other thing is our state ministries of health. They have gotten the information, even the Ministry of Education. So civil society organizations, those are charge-based organizations. They are all there to disseminate the measures of making sure that we cannot afford seeing our pupils fainting in school because of the heat. That simply means we need to close for the next 2 weeks. But we'll be monitoring. If it goes down, then we'll declare the opening of the school. The opening will not be automatically at the 2 weeks period. It will depend on the forecast that we have after the 2 weeks. If the forecast is telling us that it's reducing, the wave is moving.
That is if it normalizes.
It normalizes. Yeah.
Viewers of this special exclusive interview with actually environmental undersecretary in the Ministry of Environment, trying to tell us on the wave heat that is affecting people across the country today. Let us try to hear from actually the rightful ministry, the right ministry that is of environment, telling us something that is from the concerned Minister of Environment. I think they got something to say on that. Let us go for that short break, as we will be right back, and as we continue with our discussion, let's go for it. Stay with us, don't go away.
The Minister of Environment actually wrote to the President on the dangers that is being posed by the heat waves in our country, and the President gave us a go-ahead. Juba and most parts of South Sudan is experiencing heat wave. It is forecasted that this heat wave will last at least for 2 weeks or more. Therefore, it is critical to take proper safety measures during this humid and not hot period. Excessive heat and due to climate change. High temperatures of 39 degrees. If your doctor or health facility, readily available in case of an emergency. The approval was given by the President based on the following, as far the advice